started for 4. Greetings, everybody. This is Reggie Middleton, live in Dubai, right outside of the Burj Khalifa, right? And Burj Al Arab is that way, yes. So I'm here. I have a family office event to go to, and shortly thereafter, the entire Veritasium team is going to come down. Thank you, Joe. And you get to meet not the entire team, but the entire management team gets to come down. And you get to meet 6 of the cogs that make the entire machine go. Um, hey from Sweden, Broad King. And in the meantime, I would like to get the whole team down, but the whole team costs a lot to bring to Dubai. As a matter of fact, the management team costs a lot. After I looked at the bill, I was like, So I have guests from the UK and from Dubai here to help. And I will also attempt to take questions not only from the chat, the live chat and YouTube Live, but also from the Veritasium Telegram chat. I think it's the biggest one, the one with about 1,400 members. So I'm here to answer all practical questions. And right now, there are 75 people online. I know you're just starting to come in, 80, because I just shared it. But the 80 people who are here, please hit subscribe, share, and like to get the rest of the crowd in. It is approximately 8 o'clock-ish in Dubai, which means it's roughly 11 o'clock a.m.-ish. Okay, on the East Coast of New York. So I will be going for an hour, and I will take all questions starting now, or I could give you let me give a synopsis. With the VeADIR is still under development, of course, but it is quite usable. As a matter of fact, we've added some killer features. Take delivery is coming next week, which means when you enter into a contract, instead of selling the assets out of the contract, you're able to take delivery of the actual tokens, which is extremely, extremely cool. We also have the ability in the information panel to look into your bucket and see the actual holdings. Remember, you have a model portfolio with the VeADIR, and for those who don't understand what the VeADIR is, it's basically interactive research that you not only read, but can participate in via exposure to the research topics. We have a model portfolio based upon the research that our team of currently 4 or 5 now members have done, and you attempt to get access to that model portfolio in terms of exposure by putting F into the VeADIR and Veritasium as a fee or the key to get in, and the VeADIR itself goes and purchases the assets. Now, the valuation bands from the research haven't been enforced yet because that was a programmatic issue. That is going in today, if I'm not mistaken, or tomorrow, which means now the VeADIR will not buy anything outside of the valuation bands. That is going to make the purchases more scarce, but it should make returns significantly better than you've seen before. And again, this is a beta, it's a work in progress, it's not production. We also have, if take delivery, we have the return bands. We returned all assets in the previous VeADIR, and we have a lot of usability issues coming up. The VeADIR is designed to scale, so the users said it, the developers and engineers said it will scale, and we're on our 2nd week of the code review, the code audit. After the code audit, I will take the VeADIR with Veritasium and my personal assets, and I will start going on a massive shopping spree long term. So you get to see exactly how the VeADIR works in real time. After the valuation bands, etc. I put in. That would be maybe sometime next week. Can't guarantee it, but maybe sometime next week. And I'm assuming everybody can hear me. I have a external mic set up, so I'm assuming if you couldn't hear me, we would have said something by now. We actually did a presentation of the VeADIR in front of the most powerful regulators in the world. I'm not going to name them, but the goal was to give transparency, show them how it worked, and to impress them. There's a lot of negative publicity going around, not only with ICOs, but believe it or not, with Veritasium itself. And I think we're one of the most unique and productive ventures out. Not the most, but definitely one of them. Of course, I'm biased, right? And I believe that the regulators were impressed with what they saw. A lot of people and entities don't think that this technology can do things at the level that the VeADIR is performing at. And I'm here to show everybody. So We are going to be at the Blockchain Investment with another I conference at the end of the week. I will be speaking. I'm going to do a 20-minute keynote. We're going to have a full booth up. We're going all out with the ability to try the VeADIR out and use it. We'll probably even give out small amounts of ETH and Veri for people to play with the VeADIR. And I'll have the entire team here, everybody from Messiah to the Patrick, the tech lead, the two big analysts, everybody. The power of the business development, compliance, AML, KYC. You can ask us 1,000 questions. We'll give you 1,500 answers, and hope to be a good event. I will also have more organized AMAs and Q&As Wednesday and Thursday night of this week. And you can also come by our suite, and you can ask us all, depending on how many people show up. We can extend it throughout the night. And in addition to all of that, I may start the buying spree with the VeADIR earlier this week. We also have a rehash of the research. So I have tripled the research team, more than doubled it. Went from 1 to 2. Now we have 5 members on the research team. And the research now, under my supervision, I put a bit more of a strenuous eye on it. It's now very, very strenuous. Stringent, not strenuous. Strenuous for the researchers, stringent for the analysis. And I think we've redone the populace report. We sent out some questions to populace management. There's a section in the research that basically allows management a free-form, a freestyle exposition of their perspective of the market, their operations, etc., plus everything that we've done. As soon as we get the answers back and integrate them, we will release that. I understand I've been promising we'll release the PayPal report over and over, but the bar for the report analysis has been increasing and increasing as we put more people on staff. The populace report I'm going to release in a very unique way, so it's going to be very different, and it's going to expand the amount of people who can access it. Of course, you'll still need Veri, but when it comes out, I'll announce how I'm going to do it and how it's priced. The populace report will be a tour de force. It will set an example of how you analyze an ICO or a token company, and there's nothing along like it. Anybody who's impressed with the last populace report will have their nose blown, or their head blown off with this one. Okay, right after populace will be PayPal. Then we're going to redo Omisico. We have Dash waiting to go out, and then we're going to redo all the other reports that we've done before. Okay, and then we're going to move on with our short list. There's a short list of about 10 to 20 other companies. Some of them are actually in the VeADIR beta. Do not be confused. Those companies haven't been researched. They were just put there to try the VeADIR with a larger portfolio. But there's a lot of analysis coming up. I've done enough talking. Now it's time to take questions. And I have, my friends from Dubai, but the majority are camera shy, which is why they're on that side of the camera. So any questions from Telegram or any questions from YouTube Live, ask out.
Yeah, I've got a few questions. So the Blockchain Innovation and Investment Summit is what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's what I said.
What do you want to get out of that? What's the aim of that meet? Is it to meet people and meet investment? What do you want to get out of that?
People who go to the US-based blockchain events realize that I don't go to a lot of them. Now it's different. Now we have a product that is very tangible, that you can touch and feel, and I can market. And we're now marketing it. The VeADIR is essentially a 21st century version of an investment vehicle, but it's very, very autonomous. So when we go to the Blockchain Investment Initiative and Investment and Innovation Summit, VIII, when we go there, you'll see the VeADIR in action, and I'm going to do a presentation explaining what the new paradigm in investment is, which should clearly articulate disruption. And understand disruption is a buzzword that is used and overused. This will explain disruption in its purest essence, where you will take one of the largest and definitely one of the most profitable, if not the most profitable industry in the world, have their margins cut in less than half and replaced by robotic machines over the internet. I will walk through this in detail. using very simple layman's terms, and I'll give a demonstration with the actual software which would be running. And it's going to be interesting because a lot of times when people discuss disruption, they discuss what's going to happen, what we will produce, and I'll have a laptop and a screen right there, and you can see it running. And I'll show you the numbers, and I'll show you how you'd have this self-serving investment vehicle running at a mere fraction of what a hedge fund will charge, and likely outperform them. And I'll have research available where everybody can touch and feel and give me their impression. If the research is done by next week, which almost guaranteed to be done. That was a long form answer to the question. I hope I did it.
That's good.
Okay.
There's a few more from the group. You mentioned right at the beginning that you've done the new release where you can take advantage, take your tokens and release the tokens as opposed to just taking the Ethereum.
Right.
How does that work with products that are not in Ethereum blockchain like Bitcoin and like Litecoin?
Okay. So the off-chain products haven't been released yet, but what we've done, I did a demo with Bitcoin where I took Bitcoin and I wrapped it in Veri tech, and I traded it right along on the as an ERC20 token. If you go through my social media posts or go through the blog posts on Veritaseum, you can see where I took Bitcoin, and it's called VeADIR, and basically it's reading data directly off the Bitcoin blockchain and encapsulating it in a token on the Ethereum blockchain. So that's one way to do it, and that's way that's very interesting. But it really depends on the actual asset. See, Bitcoin writes its own blockchain, so there's a provenance, or automatic provenance, one of the Bitcoin's many attributes, and there's an easy way to get to the data. But if we were to say take the fee and title and revenue stream from the Burj Khalifa, that's a different story. It doesn't have its own blockchain yet.
Great.
Okay.
I remember a video that you said that the VeADIR or the Veritasium could be used for like 50 different things, and at the moment you're using it to buy cryptocurrencies. Obviously, I think you've got your long-term goal where you've got investment companies putting large funds in there, and I see that's your long goal. How do you see getting to that as a strategy? How do you see getting that? What are your steps in the way to proving your product in maybe small scale cryptocurrency in the stock market?
Well, the first step is, of course, getting it built. We've actually done the hardest part. Imagining it, designing it, creating it. Its functionality is close to 100%. I'd say, 85, 90%, with the 10 to 15% is basically on the back end and cleaning up, reporting, giving the data that would be necessary for institutions and what they're used to. The next step is twofold. The create adoption. Right now, ICOs, tokens, digital assets are the big craze. That's almost happening on its own, or is happening on its own, actually. If you went to the Bitcoin conference in Miami, they sold out, I think, 2,500 seats at $1,000 each. Came up with another 500 at $2,500 each, sold that out. And so, barring adoption and education, that's probably your friend downstairs. Yeah. Barring an issue with adoption. 1 second, we have a call. Go pick it up. Barring an issue with adoption, or even without an issue with adoption, the biggest issue now is education, primarily education with the regulators. The regulators pose a significant opportunity, but at the same time a significant threat. And it's primarily based upon a new paradigm, just like any other paradigm that came in, Uber and Airbnb and Lyft, Amazon, eBay. A lot of these companies, when they came, they were theoretically illegal with the current laws, but they gave a lot of value to the end user, significant value, and there was no strict regulation for that particular entity, because when those laws were written, they weren't written with the anticipation of being able to do or perform with the functionality that they could. For instance, Uber, peer-to-peer ride sharing, which is not quite peer-to-peer, peer-to-server-to-peer ride sharing, etc. And the peer-to-peer economy is going to go through the same issue, particularly on the investment side and the sovereign financial side, allowing each individual to take control of their own assets. So my goal is to educate the regulators as much as possible, which is what we tried to do a few days ago, and I think we did a good job. Now the goal is to make sure that the regulators thought we did a good job, and to comply with as many rules, with all the rules that we can. Now, the biggest problem with that is that the primary rule that governs what Veritasium does would probably be the one that was written in 1933. It is now 2018. It is severely antiquated, and there's no doubt about it. But that being the case, the law is the law. We believe we've complied with the law in every particular fashion conceivable, but we're not the ones that conceive this. It belongs to others, that particular task. So once we convince them, or if we convince them, then we move forward. Worst case scenario, then we have to redesign the business model, which has several contingency plans. So it's not like that's going to take a long time. It's a very quick process. And worst case scenario, we'd have to leave the downward side, which of course we never want to do. So optimally, things work out and we convince the regulators of what we want to do as being the future and compliant. Medium worst case scenario would be we change the business model. Okay, so we have contingency 1, contingency 2, and contingency 3 all lined up and ready to go. Okay, so I think I've thought it through. Time will tell. That's a very long form answer to that question as well. How are you? All right. Okay, you want to say hi to the crowd?
Which way is it?
Right here. There's 147 people.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And have a seat if you want.
Thank you.
Next question, and also from the YouTube live crowd, you can ask questions. It looks like you've been asking a bunch of questions now that I've been scrolling. Any other? Let me take 2 from here, and
Sure,
then
yeah, go for that.
more volume. Okay, 1 second. Let's turn the volume up for everybody. Okay, what is the name of the new hire from Angelo Gordon? His name is Andrew Smith. Okay, and Andrew Gordon is about a $23 to $30 billion hedge fund. And Andrew did the real estate acquisition. He sourced about $3 billion worth of deals, sourced them, found them, analyzed them, and closed them. Where do I see Veri in a year from now? Well, I'm not going to opine on price because that's not really relevant for our business model right now, but its actual functionality and utility. I see Veri as the entry point to autonomous sovereign finance, particularly from an investment perspective. And I see it competing directly and very successfully with hedge funds that don't perform. Okay, so private equity funds that don't perform and venture capital funds that don't perform. I'm talking taking significant market share. I also see it as a very, very unique and profitable licensing path for that same asset class, the alternative fund class, alternative assets and funds, to license Veri and license the Veritasium platform. In doing that, they take all the attributes of the VeADIR and they bring it in-house and they can customize it. So that's step number 1, okay? Step number 2, hopefully the following year, is for the clients of these funds to also jump on board. So I would like the VeADIR to be as ubiquitous as an ETF with significantly more flexibility. How is the progress with the public beta release looking? Well, the VeADIR is ready to release publicly now. It's been ready to release for well over a month now, since early January. I was flagged not to release it until we had some clarity on the legal and regulatory perspective, and that's where we stand now. Now, I control the rate of development. I control the rate of financial engineering. I don't control the perceptions of regulators. I have some input into that, but I don't control it. So I can't give you a timetable on that. That's why next week I will take the VeADIR in hand once the code audit is done. We're in the second week of the code audit, by the way, just for everybody to know. Once the code audit is done, or done to my satisfaction, and once the other attributes I discussed earlier put into place, which should happen by the end of this week and next, I will take the VeADIR personally and publicly, and I will run through and I will buy a large swath of both existing digital assets, new ICOs, and off-chain assets. And everybody gets to see how it's done. no faking it, and you can see what the returns are and exactly how it works. Okay, when are you going to try a travel industry blockchain disruption intent? When I have the opportunity. If you have an opportunity, bring it to me. You have to have ends in it, and of course, be able to finance it with a budget. And if it's worthwhile, then I will actually jump in, and I'll probably assist as well. Questions from Telegram? I'll look for others.
Sure, yeah. So somebody was asking who do you see as your nearest competitor in the blockchain space? Because the person asking the question doesn't see one.
Okay. I don't see one either. There are quasi-competitors that do things like bring assets on blockchains. There are entities who do research, qualitative research, but there's very few who actually do both that I've known of. So our closest competitor would be the extant sell-side banks. So Goldman, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, Merrill Lynch, Bank of America, which is, I guess, the same as Merrill. Those are probably our closest competitors. They're not in the blockchain space. As a matter of fact, if you listen to CEOs of many of them, they're still poo-pooing, Bitcoin, ICOs, etc. With that being the case, though, they say that publicly. Behind closed doors, that's definitely not the case. And once and if I get clearance from regulators, or even before that, starting next week, as I start buying assets myself through the VeADIR, I will demonstrate to all of their clients, particularly family offices, which is probably a very, very low friction entry point to demonstrating the virtues of the VeADIR and the technology. I will literally start taking their clients away from them. And I'll do it in real time, and I'll do it by demonstrating how the VeADIR works with my own assets between two entities that I own back and forth. They can say this is a bubble, a scam, all they want, but as I demonstrate how it works using their own business model at 1/5 their margins, then I think, the proof is in the pudding. And that's a challenge out. So feel free to compete. I'd love to have you on.
Your research team, how do they select which products? Obviously, they picked PayPy and they've picked Populous and Dash. How do they pick them, and how do they go about selecting the next ones? Why do you pick them specifically?
Well, we analyze technology. Okay, it crashed, but I'm back. So you can actually pay. I think that it's 5 to 10 5 where you can pay us to take a look at an organization. If the organization is worth going forward, we'll actually do a full analysis. And I also have entities that I feel are interesting. We don't want to do a deep dive forensic analysis on an entity that we don't think is worthwhile. And since we're not doing short candidates right now, we're looking for long only. So that's the selection process. If you can show that there's somebody who's really a promising entity, you can bring it to us. You pay enough VeRi to compensate the team for taking an initial look. And if things pan out, then we'll kick out one of those 30, 40, 50, 60-page reports.
Great. So another question from the group. With the compliance KYC AML hires coming on board, what are the main objectives for the compliance function this year?
Well, we think of ourselves as a software company, so there's very little compliance. We are quite aware that it's quite possible that regulators around the world may or may not agree with us. That being the case, we're looking to create compliance contracts, basically small contracts that automatically execute compliance routines such as KYC and AML. And we have an expert. We have the vice president of financial crimes from Societe Generale, who came on board a couple of weeks ago, and she's going to link up with the software engineers and developers and hopefully bring that to fruition. So the key with the VeADIR and all of our machines is to automate what was traditionally human practices, such as AML, KYC, asset management, etc. You can't really automate research because it takes that human touch, but you can automate asset searches and fundamental searches such as debt to equity, etc. The problem is when you do that, you use numbers that were given by entities that may not always be forthcoming. So if their intent was deceived, then garbage in, garbage out. So when you run through the search, you get a short list. Then we have our professionals come in and they go through the numbers and scrub it and try and take the truth out.
Great.
Okay. Milkman Hero says, Reggie, what are your short-term goals for the project? My short-term goals for the project is to demonstrate its utility publicly in front of everybody without tripping any regulatory wires. So that's why I will simply start trading amongst myself, and I will walk around, and I have a road show, by the way. I will publish it hopefully maybe by the weekend. I'm here in Dubai for 2 events. I will be in Amsterdam, April sometime. I think I have 2 meetings in Africa, one in Kenya, one in Johannesburg, South Africa, and around elsewhere as well. I don't have them all memorized. I will post them to the website, and either I or our team members will go up. Andrew, the new hire, is going to be at South by Southwest Wednesday, and he will speak on his own. It's his first time, and basically we're going to traipse around the world, and I'm going to carry around a little computer, and I'm going to show everybody the new way of investing through assets. And that is very short term, starting by the end of this week.
Great. Do you have any plans to, obviously they've got the Jamaica Stock Exchange on board. How's the progress going on getting the other ones on board?
Okay, well, the Jamaica Stock Exchange is not on board as of yet. We signed an MOU, we're going back and forth. That was in June, July, August of last year. So obviously things are moving a little slower. To be absolutely honest, politics, okay? And just like I can't control regulators' opinions, I can't control politics. Actually, it's politics. It's politics in Jamaica. And so those are things that, if they slow down, they slow down for reasons outside of my control, okay? I am looking to get many other exchanges. I think that actually, to be absolutely honest, we do have 2 exchanges that have sent me MOUs, and one of them sent a final agreement to get started. This is in the continent of Africa. We're so busy, I actually forgot. I'm not going to mention it yet because I haven't signed it, but I can tell you right now that on those opportunities, I'm the bottleneck, which is why I'm staffing up, because I need to delegate more. I've hired 4 individuals in the last month, and I have to double that. So we're moving forward all the way. Once I do sign with the exchanges, I'll announce them. One is actually an exchange, and the other one is an opportunity to build out a smart city in the continent of Africa and using Veritaseum technology.
Excellent. Somebody's asked what you're doing in Amsterdam. Is there an event?
Yeah, there is a blockchain event in April. I will put a calendar up on the website. My memory's shot. I'm an old man, so I know it's April in Amsterdam, and I had to use like a mnemonic machine of AA to figure that out. So I'll put it up. Okay.
Okay. So I hate the question, but what keeps you up at night?
So almost everything, because I don't get to sleep much. Probably what needs to be done for the next week. Plus, I strategize a lot. I have strengths and weaknesses. One of my biggest weaknesses is administrative issues. I can be very disorganized and haphazard. Like you asked me what I'm doing in Amsterdam, and all I can say is, I don't know, it's a blockchain thing. But my strength is strategy, okay? And I sit up at night often when I do my best thinking.
Yeah, I mean, not too bad.
Okay, I'm back. I was too stingy to pay for the expensive Wi-Fi at the hotel, and I forgot I didn't. I actually bought a local chip, but I don't want to switch over to the local chip right now, because if I do, I may lose everybody. Okay, so can everybody hear me and see me with some clarity? Give me a yes, somebody in the chat. Or a Telegram, anybody. Okay, yes. So, any other questions? I could get questions from the YouTube Live. Oh, by the way, we have 121 people. Again, hit share, hit like, and hit subscribe, okay? Reggie, do you like populists? I don't like or dislike companies. They're inanimate objects. But the Populous has a business. They actually put out a business plan, which is something most ICOs don't do. And I definitely do see promise in what they're doing. It's unique, it's disruptive, and they're making progress. There's some holes in it, like in everything else, but a lot of the holes could come from my lack of understanding, which is why I sent them the questions that I had. I'm waiting for them to answer. They started as 3 to 7 questions. It morphed into 30 questions after sitting down with 2 of the analysts, and I'm probably the most rigorous out of everybody, so I make sure that the questions are well understood, and I'm going to give them a couple of days to answer. I was going to publish today, but that wouldn't have been fair because I sent it midnight on a Saturday because of my trip to Dubai. So when they get back, again, I give them a couple of days to be fair. When they get back, I go over the answers, I consider them, and I integrate them in the report. And then anybody who has Veri can get to see specifically what my opinion is on Populous. You'll also be able to see the opinion on PayPal and Dash, Omisico, Gnosis, and Augur. And then going forward, we have maybe 10 others. And that's in the near term.
Sure. So
Questions from anybody here?
Yeah, what are the regulatory issues that you foresee in the short term?
It all depends on the jurisdiction. Because
Okay.
you pick the jurisdiction, and then there's
What about the United States?
United States, whether the tokens are securities, which is a big issue. I feel our tokens are software and prepaid license fees. I don't know if they agree with that or not, but we'll see. It's a possibility. They may not, because back in 1999, somebody didn't disagree with me. So it happens.
Somebody did?
Did not agree with me. I'm
Okay.
sorry. That was a joke. But it did happen in 1999, actually, but it also happens every other minute as well. So you also have the issue of understanding what the VeADIR is and trying to force it in a compartment that was designed almost a century ago in 1933. That's also an issue. And just defining the new paradigm. Just like when the internet came and became a real force to contend with, a lot of the laws just weren't designed to handle entities that operate on the internet. Taxation with Amazon, Uber, Airbnb, etc. So it's a learning curve for everybody. Okay, and that's just the U.S. as a jurisdiction. You also have state jurisdictions, and et cetera, et cetera.
Sure. You mentioned about Populous. Do you think it'll be once one of the first platforms to take off starts working? So if the VeADIR takes off well, do you think the others will follow quite quickly? Do you think it's the first one to break out will push the others along?
I don't know. The biggest bottleneck for release, breaking out, is building a product. Most of these products are being built from scratch, so they're startups. They're pre-seed and seed. Then there's a management issue. And then I'm not talking about Populous, I'm talking about token offerings in general. The community is primarily software developers, and engineers. And unfortunately, I see a lot of the people in the community believe that because I'm a software developer, I'm able to do X, Y, Z. If you're a good software developer, you're good at developing software. That doesn't mean you can run a business or even create a business. It doesn't mean you can create a platform. It means you can write code, develop software. It takes so much more to become a successful operation. If you look at my team, at least a lot of the management team, you see a lot of them don't have a blockchain background. A lot of them have a very cursory, if not no experience in the blockchain, but they're very, very good at what they do. Even my lead engineer, he was an extremely strong developer, a strong engineer. He helped us build the Bitcoin blockchain version of Veritaseum, but he didn't know Solidity when we started back in May, April. He learned on the fly. Now the result is what you see in front of you, the VeADIR. I believe that we can show everybody how it works. The learning path of learning the blockchain is much shorter than the learning curve of learning how to be a strong engineer or a strong analyst or a strong salesperson. Often it takes years or a lifetime to develop that, where you can learn Solidity, especially if you know JavaScript or similar language, TypeScript, in a matter of a week. And you could not perfect it, but you could become quite fluent in it in a couple of weeks. So it's very difficult to become a crackpot salesperson or, a killer financial engineer in a couple of weeks. As a matter of fact, I can guarantee you it's not going to happen. So that's my reasoning. And we have diversity as well. So we have business development, political liaison with Lorna. We have AML KYC, financial crimes with Maryland. We have operations with Eleanor. And Eleanor, we call her operations, or I call her the operations chief, but she's ex-auditing at Goldman, ex-risk management at McKinsey. She worked at a venture capital firm and private equity firm and did equity analysis at Sloan Financial Group and did a bit on her own. So very well-rounded. Patrick speaks many languages, C++, Go, Solidity. We have Manish, who worked in PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Deloitte, and is a CPA, CFA, and fluent in both European accounting and GAAP accounting rules from accounting and from a forensic analysis perspective. So, variety. When you go to most ICO platforms, everybody talks about the development team, the development team. Okay, so you're writing the software, but how about the rest? So our development team is taking the most resources right now. It's roughly about 9 individuals, 6 plus 1, 7 individuals, and an extra Scrum manager. And we're looking at bringing like 2 or 3 on board because we're developing the platform, so it's very resource intensive. Next up would be legal and actually legal is probably first now, but that's not very fun. But we have legal and financial analysis, and then we have the infrastructure that we're building up around it, operations and compliance, building up around it. And that's where most of it. And then there's overall strategy, me, and I don't really get paid, so it's like 0 resources spent on that. See, I don't have socks. See? Any other questions from anybody else?
Where do you see the market going? Obviously, the Mt. Gox's been manipulating the market a bit. It's been on a downward trend since sort of late December.
Yeah, it has been going down, but I don't really consider it a true market yet because it's fractured liquidity pools that everybody looks at through CoinMarketCap. It's not like a stock market or a bond market where you have a centralized liquidity pool that everybody trades from or can feed into and out of. And because of that, it's easily manipulated, and there's not enough people in it as well. Compared to most other markets, I think the market cap, and I never did like that term because it's misleading, just taking a price times, a number of tokens, right? And those tokens don't have their own liquidity pool, so you're multiplying 2 numbers and when the numbers aren't valid. But I'll use the term because everybody else uses it and it's going to be a quick video. So you take the market cap and it's still a fraction of almost every other market that trades. As more institutions come in and more individuals, you'll see more price discovery. But that price discovery needs vigilantes. It needs police officers like Veritasium to give true meaning analysis. For instance, when we do you see the populace report, we don't do a valuation based upon market cap, price times tokens outstanding. It's ridiculous. A lot of people are concerned about the fact that we have 98%, a little less than 98% of our tokens outstanding in our possession. The reason is A, nobody bought them, okay, which is a very good reason. And number 2, our business model is to sell software licenses, which is what the tokens represent. And so the more we sell, the better we do. It's been suggested that we burn tokens. Now, other business models, the business models are different. Some are unique. There's probably some business models that call for the burning of tokens. But if you use your tokens as inventory, which we do, like Microsoft inventories, Microsoft Office licenses, to burn your own inventory is suicidal. So you work at a bank, you make a lot of money, you have a big bank account. You take all the money out of the bank in cash. So you have this $4 million in British pounds, okay? And then you listen to a lot of the experts in the blockchain space and say, you should maximize your value, burn your money. So you take the advice. Are you wealthier after you burn your money or wealthier before you burn it?
Yeah.
That's supposed to be a trick question. There are a couple of people who will answer in a very shocking manner, so I'm going to cut you off before you answer. The key is you don't burn your own inventory. The premise that you burn tokens to maximize value is ridiculous, because that means that you're explicitly saying your operations are not going to add value to the tokens. Hence, you need to take your capital and burn tokens to maximize value. How could you expect anybody to want to buy your product if you're admitting that you don't have the wherewithal to increase the value of your product? Hence, you have to lower the supply of product available. You don't want any who would do business with you, who would invest in you. So the key is to be able to maximize the value of product through operations and not through a trick, which sounds sort of scammy in my opinion, but I don't like that word because it's used so often, of reducing the outstanding float. It's even more ridiculous if the pool of outstanding tokens don't share a common pool of economic assets. So if you have stocks, right, and the stocks share a common pool of earnings, you do get some value from reducing the amount of stocks, because each stock gets more of the earnings pool, okay, and potentially a bigger dividend. If you have bonds, and bonds share a common pool of income that would be used to pay debt service, well, then it makes sense to reduce it. But many tokens don't share any common pool of economic assets. They represent something else. So by reducing them, you're not increasing in value. You're just reducing the number of tokens. So I'm a disbeliever of it any way possible. I believe companies that do share buybacks are just playing a game. If you want to return capital to investors, the best way to do it is reach in your pocket and give it to them. You don't buy shares, you give them money. Most companies don't want to do that because, it's sort of truth. Okay, other questions? It's interesting. Guy says, not a fan of Veritasium, but Middleton has more charisma than anybody else in the space. Okay, well, thank you. Maybe he's mistaking charisma with honesty and a strong business plan and a solid product and a strong team. But hey, I'll take whatever compliment I can get, okay? Don't forget first mover advantage patent applications and nice smile. Okay. Any other questions here?
How do you plan to sell the licenses for the rest of the main coins, and is that?
I'm looking for entities who have like-minded business aspirations, entities who have a long-term view of value creation, and that's back to the family office hunting. Family offices don't need to worry about quarterly bonuses or making that year-end nut to make sure that they can buy, the Azimut yacht 86-foot versus 62-foot, etc. And because well-run family offices think 2, 3, 4, 5 generations in advance, they don't mind holding something long-term. The ICOs that we would invest in, or the early stage tokens, which are all of them, by the way, because the oldest blockchain-based one is Bitcoin and Ethereum, and that was just a few years ago. We're looking for a company that will stand the test of time. So now, 13 years from now, you would say, wow, the company's grown a lot. Well, a lot of people are thinking in terms of 13 days. 13 months is considered a long time. So 13 years is a medium term, not long term. Family offices who can think in such a fashion would be perfect candidates to be recipients of our software license. We also have institutions that are well established, okay, and that appreciate the destructive power of the new paradigm, but don't get it from a cultural perspective or just from a speed perspective. Buy the tokens, we'll do it for you. And that's two of many. I like the disenfranchised or the excised communities who would normally outperform, but they just don't have access. I used to give this example of the 11-year-old girl in Sri Lanka who's a mathematical genius because she worked on her granduncle's farm, gathering shekels of, wheat, rice, barley, etc. And everybody knows she's a genius, but nobody has access to markets. I give her access through something like the VeADIR, and she outtrades the Goldman Sachs prop desk, in and out, all day, every day. She can actually build up capital and move forward. Creating a meritorious capitalistic society is very, very powerful, because that means those who are better at doing things rise to the top, and those who are worse at doing things tend to fall to the bottom. So you have a stronger society as a whole and specialize in each and every category. Where you have more of an oligarchical, oligarch style. I'm making up words, but oligarch, which is a word that's in the dictionary, style of capitalism, which is not really capitalism, it's really more of a form of socialism, where those who have power were able to build a moat around it, and that moat is impenetrable, except for being part of the party, part of the group. The problem with that is it's not based upon performance. Okay, it's not based on ethics, morals. It's based upon basically who you knew and who you were born into. Over time, those that rise to the top create weight that they can't support from their own economic activity. And when something is top heavy and you can't support it, it falls off to the side, and that's when you have the paradigm shift. Mix everything up, but you have those go to the top again, hopefully from meritorious competition. But then when they get there, if they don't exercise and stay in shape, they get fat and bloated, and their friends get fat and bloated, fall down, wash, rinse, repeat. So rotation would be a washing machine that expedites the wash, rinse, and repeat cycle. Long-winded answer to the question. So
outside of obviously your intrinsic involvement in the crypto space, do you also have a portfolio yourself of other coins or tokens that you're interested in, and you'd say, you know what, I believe in these, I would invest money myself in them? If so, would you mind declaring?
you would see them right on the VeADIR once I get started.
Okay, so it's almost what you have pre-proposed to be there and what you're working on at the moment. It gives us a great idea really of where you see because obviously there's so many outstanding products out there, where you actually see stuff that adds value then.
Well, you'll see it on the VeADIR. Don't assume what's on the VeADIR now is what
It's
I like.
obviously what you
It's a beta, so I'll put stuff in because I want to see more things interact. But I'm a research-driven guy, so once I buy the tokens, I'll put the research out, and you see exactly. You read the documents, see exactly how we feel about it, with full detail.
Well, that's good.
I eat my own dog food.
Yeah.
Most definitely. As a matter of fact, that's all we have is dog food at Veritaseum. So, but whole food style dog food, so it's expensive dog food, but dog food nonetheless.
Where do you see the VeADIR and Veritaseum this time next year? How do you think it'll be used, and how widely do you think it's going to be used?
Okay.
I know that's predicting the future.
Okay. Well, someone asked that. I'll answer, but I'll just quickly again. We have the regulatory hurdle that we have to get through, and we have the short-term adoption. I'm going to try and focus on family offices and high net worth or ultra high net worth individuals. And the best way to do it is I'm going to walk through and show everybody this is how it works. A good example I got some feedback on. On November 8th, I put a model portfolio out using our assets. I think it's about 4 assets. We have Veritasium, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Populous. And I put $1.8 million in. It went up to about $8 million. Then we had a nasty drubbing the last few weeks, but it's still focusing around 4.6 to about $5.1 million. That's after several very nasty corrections. And it's diversified, not a single asset. And it's outperformed most of the single assets in the space. So you'll see me do that. You're just going to see me do it often. And with assets you probably never heard of. And hopefully some off-chain assets as well. Is Telegram over with questions? What US dollar price would you expect BTC volatility to calm down? There's so many variables to that I couldn't tell you. Yes?
No, I was just wondering, the market manipulation that's going on right now, do you all agree that it's Mt. Gox that's actually dumping, or is it something else that's
honestly, I have no idea. And if Mt. Gox is dumping Bitcoin, it should have no effect on non-Bitcoin related assets. So, what I've noticed is because this space is dominated by, I wouldn't say dominated, but there are many programmers involved in the space. You see more algo activity in this space than you see in other spaces because...
You mean like bots and stuff?
Yeah, bots. So you see evidence of a lot of bots. You see when the markets go up, they go up in unison, green all the way down.
Yeah.
Then they turn down, almost on a calendar basis, they turn downward, everything goes red. And then everything goes green and everything goes red. That's not how a healthy market moves. Veritasium is very different from, Augur, which is very different from Gnosis, which is very different from, PayPal. And so when everything goes up and everything goes down in unison, those are bots chasing momentum using probably off the shelf, algos, and that's not a real market. So I would ignore that for the time being. If you're in there as an investor, don't invest more than you could lose, and use fundamental analysis, which nobody does. I can guarantee you very few people do it because nobody even discusses
Because I don't
things.
think it applies in the space very much, because it's quite a volatile market. I don't think any of the TAs make sense in this sort of space. So
Well, it's not theory. I mean, do you have any money on you? No, seriously. I'll show you exactly how it works. Do you have any money on you?
right now,
Yeah, right now. None at all?
no.
Not even a, like,
I have cards. I'm holding cards.
I've got
well, here, use a card. Got some. Here,
$20.
let me get $20.
$20.
Okay, I'm going to keep this.
Okay.
Okay, are you all right with that?
Not really.
Not really. Fundamental analysis. Okay. I have money. He didn't like me keeping it, so he wants it back. He lost $20. Okay. Fundamental analysis. Simple math. Okay. I made $20, or I have $20, and I left a hole in his pocket, and he's not happy with it. That's how simple fundamental analysis. It's money. Nobody discusses money. If you take a look at almost all the ICO analyses, look at this section of money. What the return is, how the return will be made, revenues, expenses, margins, growth. Nobody mentions money, which is cool. There's nothing wrong with that, unless you're doing it for an investment. If you're doing it for an investment, then money is pretty much the only reason why you're there, right? So money should be the case. Now, if you're doing it for utility, it's a different story, but not a drastically different story, because you usually engage something, a machine or a service, for utility because you want to increase the value of something else, whether it's yourself, your product, your business, your family. So it goes back to money again, right? How much easier would this make your life? Which means you'd save time. And I teach classes a lot. So one thing I teach is the definition of money. So I just did I'm pointing to my daughter like she's here. She'll be here soon, by the way. I just did my daughter's class. She's in 7th grade. And I asked the kids, so what is money? And they say, it's a currency, or it's a dollar bill, or it's something used to buy things. And I say no. And I ask everybody here, what is money? Anybody know? I already cheated and told you it's not a currency. But come on.
An exchange of service.
An exchange of service? That's pretty good. Wow. You're cheating. Not quite there, but close. Anybody? You're an analyst?
Just a way to put value on what's economical for yourself.
Okay, well, since we're not going to take too much time on the YouTube live video, money, from my perspective, is a proxy for labor. So as a proxy for labor, it represents labor, your labor or someone else's. So back in the caveman days when everybody started off with one rock and one plot of grass, okay, one caveman or cave woman, okay, I'm getting it out the way now. One caveman or cave woman, probably cave woman, because the cavemen probably clubbing each other in the head with rocks, right? Were able to attain more rocks than everybody else because they worked harder. When they had more rocks, right, those rocks represented their labor. They could have continued to work, or they could have taken those rocks and paid other cavemen to work for that cave woman. Now she started multiplying the amount of rocks that she had, and those rocks represented labor. At some point, she no longer had the labor because she had others laboring for her. That's an investment. She took her labor and monetized it and invested in others' labor. They created more rocks for her, and she kept investing and multiplying, and that's where you have wealthy and not wealthy, capitalist class who live off of capital, and the working class who live off of their labor directly without being able to quantify and save the labor. So take that lesson, go all the way back to ICOs, and think of how an ICO is able to capitalize on a proxy for labor and expand. Veritasium takes labor and turns it into a machine, right? It automates the labor. That labor is not guys who are digging ditches or driving Uber cars. That labor is very, very high priced labor. Asset managers, okay? They take the asset manager labor, they cut the cost of it dramatically, and at the very least, they perform on par. I can guarantee you that the VeADIR will outperform a wide swath of asset managers. And now we've taken money and we've increased the value of it by creating more labor per unit of money than you can find elsewhere. So that's the economic value proposition for the VeADIR. Now, all other token offerings and ICOs or whatever should be able to articulate their value proposition in the same way. How do they do it? Look at my development staff. Look at the code we've written. You have to create businesses now. This has gotten a lot of attention and it's gotten out of the basement, scenario, and you're getting real assets. There are ICOs raising, companies raising 800 million, $1 billion. It's time to put some, real work and analysis into it. Questions here. On VeADIR, how is buying and selling controlled? Based on fundamental valuation model? Yes, it's based on fundamental valuation, qualitative and quantitative analysis. Does it trade using technical analysis? Not at all. I'm not a trader. Our financial machines aren't traders. So we do strictly fundamentals and forensic analysis with some, of course, qualitative stuff. And the VeADIR is not a trading machine. So it doesn't trade. It takes positions for the medium to long term based upon fundamentals. If someone buys non-circulating vary, well, those non-circulating vary thus become circulating supply. It all depends on how you define it, what CoinMarketCap wants to define it as. From our perspective, it's absolutely irrelevant. Earlier, I explained how since the vary are not participating or sharing into a pool group of economic assets, it doesn't really matter how many vary they are. They're not diluting each other. It does matter from the upside how many vary there are, because the more vary you have in use, the higher the economic activity is, and the higher the network effect, because you create a platform. We had one vary user, it could be happy because they used the VeADIR. We have two vary users, they could be happy because they get to share research. We have 100 million vary users, and now Veritasium, the VeADIR, becomes a platform in and of itself. So those entities can actually transfer knowledge and information and data and value between each other, and it becomes a platform just like Microsoft Windows became a platform on top of DOS, like DOS became a platform on top of the microcomputer, and like the internet became a platform on top of Windows, etc.
So much like Ethereum.
Much like Ethereum, yes. And any other platform-based economy. So, how long have we been? It's hard to tell because we have been crashing, but we've been almost an hour. And my son will be leaving Kiev, but he doesn't sound too happy to be right now. So, we'll do 4 more minutes, and then I'll bid you adieu. Okay? Any other questions live or Telegram?
No, nothing on the Telegram.
Oh, by the way, there are several Telegram chats on Telegram, several Veritasium groups on Telegram. The one which I pop in every now and then is the Veritasium chat group. I think it has about 1,400 members. That's the one to go into. So go join up if you want to learn more about Veritasium. The members there's nothing wrong with any of the other, Telegram chats. But I know the members there do a lot to educate. There's a guy, Mark, who does very, very good VeADIR videos on how to use the VeADIR, its features, its new features. He does a very good job, better job than I do, actually, which is embarrassing. So I shouldn't admit that. He does an all right job. Well, anyway, go in and join a group, and you can ask questions. There are admins from around the globe, so it's always monitored 24/7. And I like the community there. They're very positive. They're adults, well behaved. Any questions for me?
No.
What is money? Okay. I like the name Veritasium. Thank you very much.
Where did it come from?
My imagination. Veritas, meaning truth, the Latin root for truth. And eum is sort of a Latinish like root for element. So the element of truth. Okay. So after that, I find out that there's a substance in the Harry Potter movies called Veritasium with a serum, serum.
Yeah.
But even though I saw all the Harry Potter movies, it never occurred to me, so I didn't make the connection. So no, it didn't come from Harry Potter. Okay. Question, very listing on bigger exchanges. A lot of people have asked that. For whatever reason, exchanges don't want to list very. That's their decision. I have no idea why. I would say it would be for regulatory reasons, but they list a whole bunch of other things, Dogecoin, etc. So it doesn't really matter to me. You'll see why it doesn't matter as the VeADIR is released, and you see how the VeADIR acts, and Veritasium will be able to enjoy things that traditionally took an outside source to create, like price discovery and liquidity. You'll see how it works. Okay, I don't want to go any farther into that. And any exchange that does one of this please do. Actually, quite a few exchanges, all outside of the U.S. Not quite a few, but more than one exchange has contacted us and said that they're looking to list very. Okay, what I will do is any exchange that has significant volume that wants to list very, I'll can include the ability to source research to that exchange as well. So now that exchange gets to compete with the NASDAQs of the world. And our research is top notch. Okay, you still have to purchase these research using Veritasium. I mean, not Veritasium, Veritas tokens, but we could work something out. Okay, to give an incentive for clean professional exchanges to do the right thing with what I consider one of the best tokens available. And in case you didn't get the hint, that would be very. Okay. What is exactly research? When you buy it, it is automated program, bot, or text that you read and you use it to trade. It's both. Okay, it's text and it is a suite of smart contracts on the serverless platform that can give you access to exposures. I don't like the word trade because trade entails you going back and forth, such as day trading. That's not what we do. If you take a look at the Forbes 400 list, take a look at the top 20, 30 members, and think of how many are traders. 0. Take a look at the top 100, how many are traders? 0. So we're looking to create value at a much greater scale with much less risk than trading entails. Okay, it is now over an hour, and I will be going. So goodbye, hate all, Zaijian, peace. Any other languages? Dutch for Danya? Okay. Assalamu alaikum. Yes. Alaikum assalam. Okay. Goodbye, all. I'll be in Dubai for the balance of the week and into next week. Okay. And I will see you soon. And I will try and do an AMA every day. I'm actually hiring an entire a videography crew, between 3 and 5 videographers. And we're going to do a very professional video job. So it's going to look a lot different than these YouTube live video AMAs. Unfortunately, it won't be as interactive though. Okay, goodbye.